Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and if you hear anything in the background, I believe someone is blowing their driveway down the street, and you can kind of hear it. If you hear that, that's what it is, but don't worry, I'm going to talk loud enough for you to hear me, because today I'm going to explain to you not why the JPM coin will fail. I don't expect that it will fail in the sense that you think, but I do. I'm going to explain to you why ultimately it won't achieve anything bordering on what XRP and other truly decentralized digital assets will. And the reason that we're all here and the reason we're invested in XRP, or if you're invested in Bitcoin or some of these others, your reasons for being here, what caused us to show up, are the things that these bankers like Jamie Dimon, they don't truly understand. They do not realize what this is truly about. And today I want to talk to you about the big picture, and I want to talk to you about the walled gardens, and I want to really show you the reason that we've all made the right move and we're all in the right place. And these clowns can do whatever they want to do. They can create as many crappy coins as they want to. And I'm going to show you why ultimately we have done the smart thing, and it is going to be fun to watch it all unfold. But first I want to show you a few pieces of news. This is from crypto-XRP, at crypto_-XRP. He sent this to me. This is from Warren Davidson. This is the guy this guy and Darren DeSoto are the ones that are pushing the Token Taxonomy Act, which will declare digital assets non-securities. He says, Token Taxonomy Act, thanks to all who have shared input. Representative DeSoto and I are excited about the revisions and look forward to reintroducing this bipartisan bill soon. And that is a key word. Any of you that watch politics at all, the fact that it's bipartisan is huge. In other words, you've got, I think, a Democrat and a Republican pushing this. We continue to inform our colleagues about the urgent need for light touch regulatory certainty. I believe this thing is going to get passed. I don't know how long it'll take, but I believe this is going to be a done deal. And I think it should be sooner rather than later, just because of the nature of the technology and how fast all this is happening. Next, this is from Crypto Joe, at Dave_Jones_02, ex-Swift head of banking and GPI lead. We see XRP as the global reserve asset of the future. And he's retweeting this. Apparently, this is from London Blockchain Labs. Let me give that a follow. One more reason to attend our conference here. Ripple Labs, Marjan Delatin make the case for XRP as the next global reserve asset. Get your tickets here. I'm going to start going to some of these things. I just haven't decided which one yet. All right, this is from CoinDesk. Breaking. The SEC has published a Bitcoin ETF proposal in the Federal Register, starting the clock on the latest push to launch a fund. And so, if you remember, one of I can't remember which, I think it was VanEck, pulled their application to try to get a Bitcoin ETF when we were in the government shutdown, because I guess they didn't want to get just turned down just because they weren't in session automatically. And so I don't think this is the refile of them. I think it's a refile of Nice, Arca, and somebody else. But the point is that this is going to continue to come back up until eventually one of these is going to be passed. And it's just a matter of time, like I say all the time on my channel. All right, next, this is from Leonidas, at LeoHadjilOizou. Says, breaking, XRP gets its first pair to the Iranian rial. IRR becomes the 44th fiat currency to be tradable with XRP. Do you see do you see? I mean, this is one of the indications of how ridiculous what the JP Morgan thing is. Do you see what's happening? Iran has created this entirely to get around being controlled. And here you've got JP Morgan trying to continue the control by creating things and keeping it in-house. It defeats the entire purpose of the creation of digital assets. And you'll see more and more of this, but I'm about to really hit you with what the real deal is. Okay, here's where we start. This is a really smart guy. This is one of the guys that runs Morgan Creek Capital with Anthony Pompliano. Please stop calling this a cryptocurrency. Jamie Coin is a digital token in a walled garden that is backed by fiat dollar, designed by elites to try and protect their incumbent franchise. Well, I want to make a point, and I'm gonna show you what David Schwartz, I think, is the first one that used that term, walled garden. But this is what even the Bitcoiners don't understand. The truth is, if you really take a step back and you really look at what's going on, XRP is more decentralized than any of these digital assets. And the fact that these are if it's open, it's going to survive. And XRP is the most open of all of them. And I'm about to show you why I've said this from the beginning. There's the big, I talk about the big picture all the time, but the big picture I talk about every once in a while as well. And that's what this is really all about. It always has been about this. And now I'm going to zero in on it. But first, this walled garden comment is basically referring to like a bank creating their own digital asset. And make no mistake, JP Morgan did this. This is their first attempt to try to corral this new technology and not destroy their monopoly that was created when they met in Jekyll Island back in the whenever and formed the Federal Reserve. That's exactly what this has been. The Federal Reserve is for the purpose of the wealthiest people in the world being able to control the world's money. That's what it's been from the beginning. But what I just showed you with Leonidas, this is Iran. You have China, you have Russia. All these people are sick of the U.S. dollar being the world reserve currency. They do not like having to answer to the United States in all things financial. And the United States, just like all empires, eventually it's just like a I would compare. I talk about baseball all the time. I tell my sons all the time. You watch these kids who are early bloomers in baseball, and everybody's patting them on the head and telling them how good they are. Well, that is going to hurt them in the long run. You keep your head down and you keep taking more swings than that guy, and you keep practicing more ground balls than that guy, and eventually you're going to overtake him. And it's the same way with being the world's superpower. Eventually people get complacent. Countries get complacent. And when you get complacent and you start doing stupid things that are irresponsible, like running your country into the world's largest debt in the history of the world and making your dollars worthless, you will eventually have a revolt of other countries that don't want to deal with you anymore. And that is what this is all really, really about. When the financial crisis from 2008 was the signpost, folks. That was the signpost. Now let me show you this walled garden. This walled garden thing. This comment was what I showed you yesterday that David Schwartz had said a long time ago in response to this. If banks respond by building walled gardens, we'll position XRP to bridge across those walled gardens. And see, he can say that this is because XRP is decentralized. It's more decentralized than any digital asset. This can be said about it. And he says if they want one big walled garden to take over, they'll have to be as open as we are. Well, you're already seeing what's happening, like with this, outside of the walled gardens. The walled gardens are not going to work. These bankers want them to work. They're dying for them to work. But I'm going to show you now why the walled garden really is not going to work. And this is from the financial crisis. I've talked about this before. But those of you that weren't around, I'm going to tell this story again, okay? It was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my entire life. I remember it like it was yesterday. Now, this article that you're looking at is from Friday, the 26th of September, 2008. A desperate plea, then race for a deal before sucker goes down. All right. What this is in reference to is when they were in the United States, Hank Paulson, okay, and I think they talk about Paulson, talking about how he was the U.S. Treasury Secretary during the financial crisis. They said, and the U.S. was trying to pass the bailout before it was too late. Everything was going to go to hell if they didn't save the country from the financial crisis, when all they really wanted to do was bail out themselves for all of their mistakes and bail out the banks that are them. And so they went out to the TV cameras and they terrified the public. Oh, if we don't pass this public $700 and something billion bailout, the whole world's going to fall apart and we're all going to die. And it was just a whole thing, just a bunch of craziness. Well, the problem they had was, in order to get the bailout, they had to go to Congress. And this guy, Paulson, he literally got on his knees to beg Nancy Pelosi, of all people, to pass this bailout or the world's going to come to an end. Well, in the end, what did they do? They bailed their friends out, and then the very next year, the Goldman Sachs boys, the JP Morgan boys, and all of them recorded record bonuses. They all gave themselves record bonuses. Look it up. The most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. And then those same banks that got bailed out turned around and went after the people who didn't get bailed out, the home builders, the developers, all those people that were not in the bailed out class. Those people turned around and had the gall to go after them. The people who didn't make it in their car dealerships, or the people that were not chosen by the U.S. federal government to continue their car dealerships, and they were chosen. It was friends being hooked up in that whole deal. The people who were not hooked up and went bankrupt, these banks went after them after they were bailed out, and then had the gall to go after these people who had been running their businesses the same way they had for 30 years. They went after them. Okay, well, what did these banks and central banks and all of these politicians around the world learn from that? Here's what they learned from it. They called that at the time a bailout. And my opinion is that they could not believe that they got away with it. But here's what they learned from that, folks. What they learned was that we can't afford, when our livelihood, we bankers, when our livelihood's on the line, we can't afford to risk losing our money. And so next time, now that we've gotten away with this, now that the U.S., now that the public, now that we've seen that as long as we declare an emergency, that we can declare we've got to do a bailout. Now, let's just skip the bailout. This way, we won't have to go to politicians and get down on one knee and beg. What we'll do this time is we'll do a bail-in. And if you don't believe me, Google Cyprus bail-in. I've talked about it many times before. But I'm going to show you the documentation instead. This is proof. What all of these banks around the world did, they've spent the last few years going into their documents and going into their writing into their policy documents and passing whatever needs to be passed legal-wise. And they have written in bail-ins into their future plans. The next time we have a crisis, what you are looking at is literally from the Bank of England in the UK. This is a PDF. Go type in bail-in Bank of England and you will find this document. And it is creepy. It's straight creepy, because this document, all this document does, if you want to summarize it, is this document says that in the next financial crisis, that instead of us going to our Parliament or our House or whatever, House of Representatives in the U.S., instead of Congress, instead of doing that, when we go to the cameras and we declare a financial crisis, we're just going to declare a bank holiday. We're going to close your bank, and then we're going to just shave, say, 10% out of your bank account. We're going to steal 10% of your money. That way, we don't have to deal with going out in front of deal with the politicians. We can just get it done, and then it's done. And then it's your patriotic duty. We'll call it your patriotic duty to let us close your bank and shave it out of your bank account. Folks, let me read just these two things to you here. During the financial crisis, several governments bailed out failing financial institutions because letting the firms fail and enter insolvency would have caused excessive disruption to the critical services that these institutions provide and to the wider financial system. Following the crisis, the framework for managing the failure of financial firms was reformed, and a new tool known as a bail-in was developed. Bail-in allows the authorities to make sure that shareholders and creditors of a firm bear the costs of failure without recourse to public funds. In other words, oh yeah, we're doing you all a favor. But who are they referring to? Shareholders and creditors. What they're referring to is the depositors, is what they're really talking about. They're going to steal the depositors' money. Folks, if you ever wanted a reason why XRP and any other decentralized, not these stupid JPM coin or any of these centralized things, they will fail in the scheme of things. They will fail because the public they will not want to own them. And the reason they won't want to own them is because this, my friends, represents a lack of trust. Digital assets were created decentralized because of this lack of trust. They were hatched. They had been being worked on for years, but they were ultimately hatched out of the financial crisis for this reason. Ask yourself this question. You've got two options, okay? And I'll put them side by side for them. Let's say you've got $1 million. You have a choice, and you're worried there's a financial crisis coming. You've got a choice. You can put that $1 million in JPM coin, okay? JPM coin, which is tied to US dollars, which are being printed at will and will continue to be printed at will because the politicians and the government officials will not do the responsible thing. Or you can have your $1 million in XRP that there will only ever be 100 billion of, ever. There will never be more than 100 billion. And along comes a financial crisis. Are you going to trust Jamie Dimon, who controls the JPM coin with that $1 million when the financial crisis hits and the bail-ins begin? Because who's he beholden to? Or are you going to trust your $1 million in XRP, where it can only appreciate over time because they're not making more of it? And when this financial crisis occurs, there's nobody that can control it. You can have it on your Ledger Nano S in your safe if you want to, and nobody's shaving anything off of it. Can't do it. I'm going to finish up with a tweet from C3 Nick. And by the way, C3 Nick is the one that originally gave me this document. I just wanted to mention that. C3 Nick says, during the financial crisis, it became apparent that trust is the issue. Now, when banks use JPM coin or even hold it, they have direct exposure to the risk of JPM screwing up. That is worse than the dollar. The coin can become worthless overnight, especially during a crisis. I think that says it all, folks. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button. Tell your friends and family that the digital asset investor owns XRP, and I can't wait for the next financial crisis. Thank you for listening.